Okay, excellent. Hi everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Black Professionals in the Nuclear Industry. This event is being hosted by NucSoc, which is the Nuclear Engineering Society at the University of Birmingham. So this is for Black History Month, and it's the first time we've held an event of this nature. So I hope you enjoy it and kind of have the chance to learn from our speakers' experiences. We've got people from across the world speaking for us today, so it should be great. So I'm Avery Cunningham, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion representative for the NucSoc Society. And I'll be chairing today's session. Helping me out today is Molly Service, who is the Vice President of NucSoc. You'll see her in the chat looking after people's questions and stuff like that. She'll also be sharing our feedback form after each speaker and after the panel. If you can fill in this feedback form at some point, really help us. As I've said, this is the first time we've held an event like this. So any feedback we can have to make this event and the future events better in the future would be amazing. So for the first hour of today, we'll be hearing from our three speakers. And then the final hour will be a panel discussion with not only the speakers that you've just heard from, but also a fourth person will be joining us. So we'll get started with our first speaker. So starting us off, we have Ray. Ray is a senior advisory consultant at ARUP. He currently provides the knowledge management advisory to the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority to help facilitate the goal of ensuring the right knowledge is available to the right people at the right time for a safe and efficient cleanup of the UK civil nuclear legacy. Ray leads the ARUP team that provides the subject matter expertise to the knowledge management improvement programme at Sellafield. So Ray, if you'd like to.
Yeah, thanks, Avery. So I've been mute for a while. Well, nice meeting you. We've been having conversations by email. And hi, everyone. So I think we've got, how many minutes have I got? 15 minutes or so, or less?
Yeah, about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's a short one, actually. I'm anticipating more questions than what I have to say, so I don't keep talking at you. So about me, which you've actually mentioned. So the question is how did I get into nuclear? So I'm actually not a nuclear scientist or a nuclear engineer. I've got a background in civil engineering and building construction. But I got into knowledge management in 2006. 2006, and I've been doing that since ever since, and I'm loving it. And this is about KM, knowledge management is about helping organizations to make the best use of their knowledge assets in the best way that supports their overall business drivers, be it innovation, competitive advantage, in the case of nuclear, security, safety, efficiency, all the sort of how do you harness and make the best use of knowledge, basically, for the benefit of the organization. And I worked with a whole lot of organizations in the public sector, private sector, large organizations, SMEs, the academia, and so on. So about ARUP and what I do. So I currently work for ARUP as a, just like you said, a very senior advisory consultant. ARUP has a framework agreement with the NDA as a nuclear decommissioning authority to provide knowledge management services across the NDA estate. And this is a combination of in a whole lot of organizations, including Magnox Limited, LLWR, Low Level Waste Repository, INS, International Nuclear Services, RWM, Radioactive Waste Management. I think you know these organizations. I mean, if you're in nuclear, it's Direct Rail Services and Sellafield, which is the biggest of this organization in the size of the operations and budget. So we're helping the NDA to implement their policy. So they have a policy of ensuring the right knowledge is available to the right people at the right time for a safe, secure, and efficient decommissioning of and remediation of the UK's civil nuclear legacy, so what they call it. So like I said earlier, it's about maintaining the capability to deliver nuclear work in the present time and in the future, because we know that the nuclear decommissioning and remediation in the UK is going to be there for at least 100 years, because what we're trying to do is to remediate sites to greenfield status, and that takes a long time. So how do we ensure that we continue to get the capability for those that are going to be working in the future to have what knowledge they need to have to be able to make that happen? So I currently live in Whitehaven. It's in the northwest of England. I'm assuming everyone knows where Whitehaven is. Well, 6 out of 10 people don't. Just one small town, northwest of England, in Cumbria. It's small compared to Birmingham and any other city. It's so small it has no Starbucks, has no KFC. If that's I'm not trying to discourage you. Whitehaven is a homogeneous, I'll call it a homogeneous town. So it's got less than 1% black population, and what that means is that it makes you conspicuous. So everywhere that I go to, I'm noticeable. So I mean, the people seem nice. So when I go on the streets, 3 out of 5 people meet you on the street. They say hi, they smile. Sometimes they ask you questions. Typically they ask you, "Are you a doctor?" I'm like, "Not a medical doctor here." And then they ask you, "Do you work for Sellafield?" I'm like, "Yeah, somehow." So I realized earlier on, I've been here for 2.5 years. I realized earlier on that the biggest employers here are Sellafield Limited and the NHS, and these are the places where typically people come here to work. So it's a small town, but not far away from the Lake District. Anyone who knows where the Lake District is, so when things get really boring, I find myself in the district by the lakes. It's really, really nice there. Which takes me to Sellafield, so which actually where we're heading for now. So it's a big site. It's a nuclear site. 2 square miles land area, 1,000 facilities in there. Really, really complex operations going on in there. 11,000 employees, and about £2 billion annual budget, and it's all about decommissioning, remediation, and waste management. So I provide subject matter expertise to the knowledge management improvement program, and that's about helping to develop and deploy their knowledge management strategy and implementation plan. So it's just strategic stuff, engagement and facilitation, and making things happen for the organization. Because the longer term view is to ensure that they embed knowledge management in their practices and culture, basically making it self-sustaining across the organization. So it's been really tough to do. It's not the first time there's a strategy for knowledge management in Sellafield, but it's just been difficult to make it sustaining over time. So I work with the team very, very closely, and so my experience, which leads to why we are here. It's like I mentioned to Avery earlier this week, that I haven't got much of a deep, profound, sad stories about what my experiences in the workplace. I think overall it's been good. I work very well with the team at Sellafield, and they work very, very well with me. I've had the opportunity to meet many profound, knowledgeable people in nuclear, nuclear sciences, and real smart folks. I've run workshops and with senior subject matter experts in nuclear. I've conducted knowledge capture interviews with people who have people who have been on site for at least 30 years, people who have worked for 35 years in nuclear, 40 years, real experts in their fields. And in as much as I respect what they do, I think they also respect me for what I do as well. So it's always a very amicable and professional sort of relationship. So I've been there for over 2 years. I'm yet to see any, well, personally, I haven't experienced anything where color has to come into play or something. Maybe other people have, but I think it's always been about, I've got a job to do here, I've got to be professional, and that's exactly what I do, and that's how people tend to relate with me. And I also get invited a lot of times. So before COVID, there are nuclear events, so nuclear industry dinners and nuclear events and all these big things. I just find myself in there every time. But I won't take too much of your time. I think my observations, which, on a concluding note, please ask me lots of questions after this, is that anyone who wants to come to Cumbria, if it's kind of different for the rest of the country, especially down south, it's a different world here. And if you are Black in Cumbria, especially working in nuclear, you will be in the minority of minorities, in terms of numbers. So you will be conspicuous, and occasionally people will stare at you like, I'm thinking, sometimes I wonder why they, could it be that they are thinking, what was he doing here? So, but eventually you get used to it. Keep being professional. You've got a job to do it. I also think that there are lots of opportunities in nuclear in Cumbria. And I mean, I thought maybe if there are students that will be listening to this as well, don't hesitate to apply and put yourself forward. Don't restrict yourself to your comfort zone in your local area. You don't always have to be in Birmingham or Southeast London or something. Cumbria is one of the few places where salaries are high and accommodation is relatively cheap compared to down south. And sometimes we do struggle to actually recruit people to bring them to Cumbria, especially mid-level and senior level professionals. People just don't want to come. So the opportunities are there for anyone who wants to try. I think there is need for more representation, and this is just a general conclusion now. Just broadly speaking, I think there's always a need for more representation and visibility of Black folks in sciences and tech. And why am I saying this? We know that, like, anytime I watch the news and there are Black folks being interviewed or something, especially in recent times, it's always about talking about knife crime and gun violence and racism and police brutality and all that. So it just gets too much sometimes. That are there no other stories? Are there no other interesting things? And what came to mind is during the last George Floyd protest, globally, there's so much protest going on. But it was around the same time that Elon Musk, sent people to the International Space Station, and that was the first time in a decade that happened from the American launch from the American soil, basically. Guess what? There were a handful of Black people that contributed to the success of that program. And they had a lot to say and a lot to share, but they just were not visible enough. So I would have preferred children in schools, in secondary school, primary school, to watch that and to hear their stories, what they did, how they got where they got. Maybe they might inspire them, rather than every time watching the other, the sort of stereotypical things we see on telly. So I think this applies to nuclear as well. And wherever we go, whatever we do, let's make sure that we are more visible in sciences, in nuclear, and try to inspire, the upcoming generations. And I think that's part of why I accepted to do this session. So I hope you've found it useful in a way. So that concludes my talk. So over to you, Avery.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you. It's good that you've had no real bad experiences. That's a good thing as well. I'm glad that's the case. And there's some great tips, I think, for any Black students who might want to work in nuclear, that they shouldn't worry about maybe moving out of a city where they might feel safe. You did want to do a bit of a Q&A now, so we can do that right now if you want to answer any questions now before, or if you want to leave them all to the panel, we can move on to the next speaker. Did you have a preference, or?
Oh, we can move on so that we still have a combined panel.
Yeah,
session.
that's fine. I just know because you mentioned the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can move on to Sadia, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, is it my turn?
Yeah. So Sadia works at Sellafield, where she is the co-chair of the BAME network there, and I'll let you properly introduce yourself now.
Hi everyone, I'm Sadia Samas. I'm a mechanical graduate engineer at Sellafield. I started last year on the grad scheme, and a couple of months ago I joined the BAME network after all the George Floyd things that were happening. I'm dead invested with the Black Lives Matter movement. I went to all the marches in Liverpool. So when the BAME network was like, we're going to start again, I was like, yeah, I'm going to join. And then I become a co-chair as well. So yeah, a bit about me. So my parents are Nigerian, but then they moved to Saudi Arabia so my dad could train in hospitals. I came to the UK about the age of 3, moved to Liverpool, and I've lived here ever since. I was the only black girl in my primary school because I lived in a really white area, and the same with my secondary school as well. Completely full of white people everywhere, all girls, Catholic school. There wasn't that many BAME people in our school, so yeah, stuck out like a sore thumb. However, I've always been dead academic. I've always been outspoken. Everybody knew who I was. I've always been that girl. So in sixth form, I studied maths, physics, chemistry, and Spanish. I wanted to do maths in uni originally. However, I didn't have a plan to where this maths degree would lead me to. So I had to take a step back and sit and think about what can I do in the future. So when I come out of uni, I have some sort of idea and a path to walk down. So because I'm really good at maths, I really like physics, I really enjoy chemistry, I thought engineering would be for me. I wasn't too sure on what type of engineering I wanted to do, so I went with mechanical because mechanical is quite broad, but my top 2 were chemical or mechanical. However, I lean towards mechanical more. A fun fact about me applying to university, it was the biggest ball ache ever. My head of sixth form tried to persuade me out of applying for mechanical engineering, which is really bad on his part. He was like, I don't think you'll get into university and all this, that and the other. And I had to literally fight with them for a good week straight before he submitted my application to UCAS. But I got my way in the end. So yeah, applied to uni, got me results, got a place in uni doing mechanical engineering like I wanted to do. So I was so happy. So I stayed in Liverpool. I went to Liverpool John Moores. I got a first class degree in mechanical engineering with a year out in industry. Again, there was only 10 girls on the full entire course. There was about 250 of us altogether, 10 girls, and then there was only a small amount of BAME students. So yeah, same, what's it called, environment all over again, but in university. But I still had a really good time. I really enjoyed the course. I thought, looking back on it, I had a really good 5 years. I'd never change anything about it. It was boss. On my year out, I did a placement at Husco International. Husco are an American firm, and they design, build, manufacture, produce control valves that go on JCB machines. So a control valve lifts up the digger, moves it left and right, and put it back down again. So I was doing that. So I got to do loads of design work, loads of testing. I got to do a stint out in quality. I did a bit of manufacturing. I worked a bit in operations. I got to try a bit of everything. And I just loved engineering even more. So I continued on with my degree. And that's why I got a master's in the end. But university wasn't just about education for me, so, or going out either. I think I wanted to spend my time in university developing my character and like becoming a better person, because I felt like in sixth form it was all about me getting into uni, all about me going out, all about me living my best life. And then I don't know, I just had this thing in uni where I was like, you know what, I'm going to do some good in the world. So like I volunteered in an alternative provisional school. So we all went to school and there was like naughty kids that got kicked out. Well, after them kids get kicked out, they came to the school that I worked in. So it was horrendous. I got absolutely bullied by all the staff, not by the staff, by the pupils. I'd literally come in every single day and they're like, what are you wearing? They were like, why on your eyebrows even? They were like, so why do you have them trainers on? They were so last year and stuff. Like, oh, it was horrendous. Like me and the staff had to like band together and look after each other because them kids would have ripped us apart. But it was funny. I also did like a volunteering program out in Fiji for a month. So we went to live in like a local village and help their education system, like help them learn more maths, help them improve their English. And we also did some like community outreach programs there as well, which was really cool. So yeah, I enjoyed uni so much. After uni, I wanted to apply for a job that meant something, because I worked in Husco, and as much as I enjoyed the job, it was very much a money making environment. So I didn't like the fact they let staff go and like bring them back when they needed them. Like all of that just didn't sit well with me. So I wanted to work in like an industry where you were actually doing some good. So Sellafield was good for me because their mission is to decommission, and it's like one of the most, if not the most, hazardous site in all of Europe. And I thought, you know what, that's a bit of me. There's like no money making, you're making the planet greener. I enjoyed that. So I applied for the grad scheme, got onto the grad scheme, thank God. And yeah, it's been like a year later. So my first 9 months, I was on PAL fuel cladding silo, and they were in between like design phases. So when I came into the team, they had like loads of improvement work that needed doing. So I did loads of total productive maintenance as a designer, and I made some really incredible pieces of work, if I do say so myself. And it's been distributed out to the mechanical design community. So I'm dead made up with that. I stayed on that project a bit longer because of COVID. However, it hasn't ruined my plans on the grad scheme at all. Right now, I'm working on major projects. So Sellafield is working with a number of different companies to like get into the next phase of decommissioning. So that's exciting. What else am I doing? Next slide. So far being in the nuclear industry, I've only been there for a year, and as a Black woman, it's been really positive in my personal opinion. Like everyone that I've worked with have been so nice. I've not had any bad experiences with people. I think it's because they all understand for like the nuclear industry to progress and to innovate more, there needs to be diversity and inclusion in the team. Like you can't get anywhere with having the same types of people doing the exact same problem. Like you're always going to get the same answer at the end of the day. And there's like loads of facts out there in the world. Like me and my mate Ellie went to like this women in engineering event last year or the year before, and one woman turned around and said a company who has more of a balance between male and female tend to do a lot better than a company that is male oriented. And I think it applies the exact same with like the BAME individuals as well. Like the more diversity we have, the better things will be, and more answers, better answers, everything will be just a happy world. The nuclear industry isn't the most nicest towards BAME people, not gonna lie. I've heard horror stories. Like I'm part of the BAME network of Sellafield, and people have shared their stories, and it's heartbreaking. Like some of the things that like have been said to them, done to them, there's like no need. Like I don't understand it personally. And with everything that's going on in the world, and the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority, the NDA, are looking into like equality, diversity, inclusion. So I thought it was a really good idea to like join the BAME network for that reason. And then I became a co-chair. For the past couple of months, like we've been working on like a strategy document. We've been working with executives in the business to like get a race chart to put into place. Last week it was Wear Red Day, and loads of the executives like posted themselves wearing red. Even the CEO like shouted out the event and like got people involved too. So yeah, it's been dead good so far. So a quick summary: don't be afraid to be the only person of colour in a workplace, in school, in anywhere, because diversity has to start somewhere. Listen to yourself and decide what is right for you. And lastly, allocate some time in uni to develop your character as well. I think that's very important. But yeah, that is me, done and dusted.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. That was a really good journey through your time for education to the work. And it sounds like you're doing some great stuff with the BAME network.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we'll leave questions for when you rejoin us for the panel. So finally, last but not least, we'll be having Clinique speak, who was the first Black woman to earn a PhD in material science and engineering from the University of Michigan. She then spent 8 years at the Naval Nuclear Laboratory in Pittsburgh before joining the Naval Surface Warfare Center in San Diego last year.
Yes, thank you, Avery, for that nice introduction. Good morning from the West Coast. Good afternoon to you all. Like Avery mentioned, I'm Dr. Clinique Brundidge. I'm at the Naval Surface Warfare Center out in San Diego, California. And we focus on ground combat weapons and munitions, and I'm the lead material scientist here. I'm specifically responsible for developing advanced manufacturing technologies for weapons and munitions for the US Marine Corps and for deployment environments. So prior to coming on board to the Warfare Center last year, I spent 8 years working at the Naval Nuclear Laboratory in Pittsburgh. Just to give you a little background on NNL, it's a prime contractor to the United States Navy. It primarily focuses on the design and development of naval nuclear propulsion systems for naval warships. So that includes submarines and aircraft carriers. There's 5 main sites around the US and field offices actually located in Barrow, Derby, and Bristol in the UK. And so I was sitting at Bettis Laboratory in Pittsburgh. It's a predominantly a research and development laboratory. I was responsible for nuclear core materials development. I developed and led a variety of critical multidisciplinary test programs that primarily supported the mechanical design of the nuclear core reactor. And I also helped make a lot of critical fleet support decisions. And I was able to contribute to the nuclear industry through journal and conference papers and focused on advanced materials development. So I routinely participated in material science, manufacturing, testing, and nuclear society international conferences to stay engaged with various fields. And I also served as a reviewer for various publications. And outside of my technical responsibilities, I served on the NNL Diversity and Inclusion Council, where we were tasked to develop policies that supported recruitment, retention, mentoring, and promotion of underrepresented minorities within the company. Just to give you a perspective, at the Pittsburgh site, we had about 7% of Black Americans within the company. That's quite small, given that in the Pittsburgh region, it was about 13% of Black people in the population. So it really wasn't consistent within the company. At different sites, diversity sort of varied. So at our Albany, New York site, it was much more diverse with Latinos, people from the Middle East. And then our site in Idaho, it was very homogeneous, right? So it was mostly Caucasian. And so that wasn't different than my matriculation at the University of Michigan. It was about the same percentage. So the transition was quite easy. And so I was heavily involved in recruiting activities at different universities within the US to help the company grow in terms of diversity. And I helped new staff transition within the company. I developed programming that highlighted various cultures throughout the year and routinely planned enterprise-wide Black History Month events like this one. You may be wondering, well, how did you get interested in the nuclear field? Well, during my matriculation at the University of Michigan, I took an Intro to Nuclear Engineering course, and I initially became interested in the nuclear field. And after graduation, I was very interested in exploring fields that involved high temperature structural materials development, but in an R&D capacity. And at the time, I was a young single woman, so I preferred to relocate to an urban area. Just to give you a little background, I grew up in the Metro Detroit, Michigan area, which is home to the Motor City. It's very manufacturing focused, very diverse and urban. So it's rare that you'll find a nuclear lab that's located in an urban area, unfortunately. Most of the US laboratories are located in isolated or more rural areas. So that's how I sort of down selected to NNL in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh seemed to be an excellent option since it was similar to Detroit. It has a rich manufacturing history and a good pastoral and city mix. The experience in the nuclear industry has been mostly positive. Majority of the workforce is white male, of course. So I spent a lot of time trying to gain respect from my peers. I also have a streak against me since I look so young. I still get questions today. Did you just graduate from graduate school? No, actually, I've been working 9 years since attaining my PhD. So I enjoyed my 8 years in Pittsburgh. I was able to get recognized within my company and externally by the city of Pittsburgh. I was selected as Pittsburgh's 40 under 40 honoree and a Pittsburgh 50 finest awardee. However, I noticed that Pittsburgh was a very insular, cold and snowy city. And after a couple years, I realized that it was not a great area for single African-American women. There was even a widely publicized study published on 20 September 2019 by the city's Gender Equity Commission about the disparities in Pittsburgh for African-American women, titled, and I quote, "Pittsburgh, a most livable city, but not for Black women. Pittsburgh is the worst place for Black women to live in for just about every indicator of livability," end quote. So many of the key points mentioned in the article were concerns that I personally experienced, such as significant disparities in health, poverty, income, employment, and education for African-American women. And the article was published about 10 days before I actually relocated to San Diego, California, which is a wonderful, warm, sunny city that's very culturally and racially diverse. And I highly encourage you to visit if you haven't done so already. I wish I could have continued a career in the nuclear industry and perhaps one day I can return, but for an African-American woman, oftentimes geographic location, career development opportunities, and socioeconomic disparities play a strong role in our career decisions. A little bit more about me. I attained my bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in material science and engineering from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. My doctoral thesis focused on high temperature structural materials development for aerospace applications. And like Avery mentioned, in 2011, I was the first African-American woman to graduate with a PhD in material science and engineering from the university. One may look at that achievement as a positive and a negative. It's great to have that honor, but I wish it would have been achieved a generation or two earlier. Now, some may argue that that's a very ambitious consideration because most of my colleagues, and perhaps you're in the same boat, we're first generation college students. I was lucky enough to have great grandparents that graduated college, but that's not the norm here. But there's been an incredible response for my achievement or my milestone. There has been a second African woman graduate within the past 4 years and a third graduate. So hopefully now there's a strong pipeline that will continue to grow in the future. I believe that it's very important to have trailblazers. Those are the people that ignite a movement for the successors. Those are the people that become mentors to others that can follow in their footsteps to success. I had many mentors growing up in primary school, secondary school, but I never had an African-American woman mentor. Because there weren't very many accomplished women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics that I had access to at the time. I was also the first African-American, male or female, to letter 4 years on the University of Michigan swimming and diving team. I can't tell you how many times I went to or competed at swim meets, international swim meets, and I'd look around, hundreds of participants, hundreds of fans, and I'd be the only one there. But the good news is that sparked interest in other Black swimmers to join the team in the past 10 years, which is awesome. I never thought that would actually happen. So being the only one in specific or certain environments is nothing new to me. It was the same way in high school when I was competing in swimming, in my engineering classes at the university, at international conferences that I attend. But I spend a lot, like I said, I spend a lot of time trying to gain the respect of my peers, right? And then once people respect you, then you're sort of more welcomed into that society. But everyone doesn't have to do that. Some people can walk through the door and just because of the way they look, they've already gained their respect, right? So you may have experienced those similar types of things of feeling as though you have to gain their respect first before you're welcomed into that environment. But luckily things are changing, right? I'm starting to see more and more underrepresented people in different capacities, especially in STEM. So it's very important for me to give back and mentor others when possible. Because being I was always a pioneer, right? I never had a mentor because I was always the first one doing it. So, being a pioneer isn't always stress-free. Do you really want to be a pioneer, or would you rather go to an environment that already has diversity inclusion practices in place? Many times I would encounter people that were just not used to seeing someone that looked like me or someone that didn't look like them. In most cases, I was met with welcome. I acquired many companions from all different backgrounds, but there were some cases where I was met with adverse or prejudicial reactions. But over time, those same people would come around because they gained a new perspective the more and more we interacted, because they realized that, hey, we have more in common than they initially thought. So I think that's a very important factor in today's modern civil rights movement, when people of different backgrounds can come together for a common purpose. And the US and the UK have had long histories of the civil rights movements for racial equality and justice that have morphed over time, from gaining the right to vote, to ending segregation, to ensuring equality in the workplace, the educational system, in your own community. So it's very important for everyone to continue to make progress in eliminating disparities and bias. It's important for the majority to be welcoming to the minority population. So that's why I'm kind of glad that we have these Black History Month events that are enterprise-wide or open to everyone to attend, because the majority is on the inside and the minority is on the outside. It's up to the people on the inside to open the door for the people on the outside. The people on the outside can knock and ferociously bang on the door, but you just can't walk in. The people on the inside have to open the door sometimes. And so sometimes people ask me, well, how does it feel to be the only one? I tell them to imagine going to employment at a different country. And maybe some of you all have, experienced that as well, going to a different country for school or for employment. And you go somewhere where no one looks like you. It's a homogeneous society where everyone treats you differently because of your background. And I ask them, would you really take that more challenging path? Or would you prefer to stay in your comfort zone and thrive? And then I say, Black people always don't have that luxury. So thank you so much for having me, and just excited to be here.
Thank you so much for that. That's interesting. And it's great to hear kind of a different experience from a way across the pond from us over here in the UK. Yeah, so thank you for all our speakers. It was great to hear from all of you. We're now just going to take a 10-minute break, just to give people a chance to join for the panel. You can all go stretch your legs, get a cup of tea, anything like that. So yeah, I'll see you back here at 5 to 5 here in the UK. I'm not sure what time that will be for you. I'm sorry, Clinique, but yeah, see you all soon. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the panel portion of our event. I hope you had a nice quick break, got yourself a cup of tea or whatever. For this panel portion, we will be rejoined by our speakers and also Sunchi Chen, who has recently completed her BUSC in Nuclear Science and Materials and her Masters in Physics and Technology of Nuclear Reactors here at the University of Birmingham. For those of you who are now joining just for the panel, she will be joined by our earlier speakers who are Ray, Sadia and Clinique. So Molly will be looking after our questions. I can see that some of you who have already dropped some in the Q&A section already. So if you do have them, please do pop them in that bit and we'll get them asked for you. So to just start off, I'll give Sunchi a chance to introduce herself to you all, since we haven't heard from her yet. And then if the other panelists can take a moment to remind you all of who they are, that'd be brilliant.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Sunchi. Like Avery said, I just graduated from University of Birmingham, doing a master's in nuclear technology. Before that, I did a BSc in nuclear science. So I've just joined the UK AEA, which is the United Kingdom Atomic Energy Authority. It's a bit of a mouthful. Literally just started. I'm in my 4th week of the graduate scheme, and yeah, just for those who don't know, the UK AEA manages fusion technology for the country. So we're really part of developing fusion technology, so that it might be used, you know, in the future for energy production. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and that's what I will be doing for the next 2 years. So if you have any questions, maybe more on the education side, more on the university side, or maybe just beginning in the nuclear industry, because I don't have as much industrial experience as our other panelists, but if there's anything is focused around university, that would be better for me to answer. Thank you. I think my sound's gone. I can't hear anyone now.
Sorry,
I'm just having technical issues here. Okay, it's fine now. There we go. Yeah, that's me.
do our previous speakers want to quickly reintroduce themselves for anyone just joining? Anyone want to go first?
Sure, I'll go. I'm Dr. Clinique Brundidge. I'm from Naval Surface Warfare Center, Warren Division out in San Diego, California.
I'll go next. I'm Sadia Samas. I'm a graduate mechanical engineer at Sellafield. I'm also a co-chair of the BAME network at Sellafield too.
I guess that leaves me. So it's Raymond Olayinka, knowledge management specialist. Well, I'm a senior advisory consultant with ARUP, based in Whitehaven, Cumbria, and I work very closely with Sellafield and the NDA. So if you have questions regarding Sellafield, NDA, or knowledge management, or Black in Cumbria, yeah, forward it to me.
Brilliant, thank you. So just to get us started and so everyone can learn a little bit more about you all, one of the questions you've had is, what is your most proud moment so far? So what are you most proud of for what you've achieved? It could be anything.
I guess I'll go. I guess we'll go in the same order. I guess the proudest moment would be completing my master's thesis. I handed that in about 4 weeks ago. And it was really, I mean, I feel like doing a thesis is stressful anyway, but doing it during a pandemic is even more stressful. You know, I spent the whole year thinking I'll be able to get really hands-on with my thesis, and then being told I have to do everything from home. It was a bit of a bummer, but I got through it, and I hope I did well. I think I did well, you know, not trying to jinx anything. But yeah, I think that's my proudest moment so far.
Do we go in any order, clockwise or anti-clockwise? How are we?
I think it's this. I think the order is different.
Yeah,
It's in different
everyone
from
will
different
see,
screens.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll leave it to Avery to just mention points out, mention names, and then we'll just
That's
jump in.
fine. Do you want to go now, Ray, since you're already speaking?
Okay. Yes, proudest moment. Yeah. It's, yeah. For me, it's I think a few years back, it's about capacity building in Africa. I think I was invited by the Technology Strategy Board back in the day in the UK and the British Council to help pilot the knowledge transfer partnerships in sub-Saharan Africa. And so knowledge transfer partnerships is about connecting the academia with industry, tapping into research and the capabilities within universities and research organizations, and supporting SMEs, and just connecting them and coming up with innovative ideas and products, and so in order to grow the capacity and capabilities of the particular country. So we spent time in Kenya. So eventually we piloted this in Kenya, in Uganda, in Nigeria, and Malawi. Yeah, so it's 2009, early 2009. Yeah. So so at the end of the day, it was great to see local. I think one of the main examples that stood out for me was being able to manufacture chocolate in Ghana. So this is a country that produces cocoa, and they've spent years and years exporting raw materials abroad just for them to import really, really expensive Cadbury chocolate, right? So to have that facility to type into research in universities, and now they make it by themselves and produce it locally, and I think that contributes to the GDP of that economy. So yeah, so I think it was just the proud feeling of being part of that, spending weeks and weeks, and making a difference and adding value through my profession. So that was pretty cool.
Excellent. Sadia, do you want to go next? You're muted, so.
My greatest moment. Does it have to be like work related, or can it just be in general?
No, just what are you most proud of?
My most recent one. I bought a house on my own, so that's my most recent achievement in life. I'm probably proud of myself. Like saving up for the deposit and sorting it all out by myself has been incredible. Yeah, that's me. Short and sweet.
Yeah, Clinique, do you want to finish us off?
Sure. So I really admire our parents' generation and the generations that came before them during the civil rights movement to allow people of color to be able to matriculate through universities and not have to face segregation or, certain Jim Crow type laws. And so for me, being able to make accomplishments such as graduating from college or attaining a PhD or being the first a pioneer in this particular field, that was the easy part. The hard part is creating a pipeline afterwards. So I was very proud to see other African-Americans, especially African-American women, follow in my footsteps, become Big Ten swimmers, become Olympians, because you really, you looked at the Olympics decades ago, you didn't see any Black people competing in swimming and diving, right? So being able to spark that interest and encourage others to follow in those footsteps is very inspiring to me, and very proud to look back and see how much things have changed.
Excellent. Thank you. So the next question. How did your experiences as a Black person within your field, so I know not all of you started up in nuclear, change as you progressed from education to industry, or as you changed industries? Maybe in your case, Ray.
How's it? So what was the question again?
So how did your experiences change as a Black person as you changed either from within education to industry, or maybe in your case from industry to industry?
My experience, I always always because I think my how do I put this now? So I've so I wasn't born in the UK and I didn't grow up in the UK. So when I came to the UK about 15 years ago, going to 16 now. Oh my God. It was then I realized that the experiences of those that were born here and grew up here is different from mine, and so it took a while. It took a long time to be able to understand and empathize with what people went through when they went through primary schools and secondary schools and things that were called and all the yeah. So so I just came not having a perception of what it means to be Black, or you know, I just had to. I was just learning that. That was 15, you know. Years ago. I actually heard racism for the first time, not for the first time, but for someone to, I think it was 2006. I think I was working in central London then, with, you know, nice job, and I think I was one of like 2 or 3 other Black people in the whole organization. And I remember a senior consultant, a Black woman, she joined us at some point, and so we were in the kitchen, you know, just chitty chatty, and she goes like, "Oh, have you experienced any racism in this place?" I was like, "How? You know, like, has anyone been? You know, have you experienced that?" And I must have disappointed her with the sort of answers I gave, because I just couldn't figure out what she was talking about. So it took a while to begin to try to understand it. So how has it changed me? I just carry on, and I just carry on with my profession, yeah, and maybe it happens around me and I do not see it, because I'm just not aware, but it is happening. And so I'm not sure I'm answering this question properly, but you know, yeah, let me just leave it there.
Good. Sunchi, did you want to go next to talk maybe about changing experiences?
So I guess rather than changing from education to industry, I mean, I don't have much experience in industry so far, but the biggest change I've noticed from moving to university to moving to Oxford, so I was living in Birmingham, now I'm living in Jericho, Oxford, was, you know, is a lot more homogenous here. There's a lot more white people generally around me, which I had expected anyway, and it's not something that bothers me too much because everyone's, you know, really great, we get along. But coming from University of Birmingham, which is a very, very diverse, is very diverse, and all of my immediate friends were all Black, pretty much were mostly Black. So that was a really big change. That's the most immediate change I can think of. And I think another major change was when I moved from my hometown in Bristol, coming to university. My hometown in Bristol is very, very diverse. Also, I think maybe white people were even in the minority. On the street that I lived in, it was mostly Black and Asian people that I grew up with. So when I moved to university, even though it was a diverse university, I was confronted with a lot of different ideas, and people who, you know, didn't believe the same things as me, people who had different views to me that conflicted with mine. And it was my first experience of dealing with that kind of thing and having to, you know, debate my place, and you know, tell people I'm not here for anyone's pay. You know, I got the same grades as you. I deserve to be here like you do. That was my first experience. That was my first time seeing that. So that was difficult at first, but I got over it. And I realized that my actions speak louder than me trying to fight all the time. Because now I have 2 degrees. So, you know, I think that speaks for itself.
Excellent, thank you. Clinique, do you want to take this now?
Sure. My transition from my matriculation at the University of Michigan to the workforce was fairly smooth. At University of Michigan, it was very diverse, but within the engineering classes, it was predominantly white male. So in the workforce, that was consistent. It was predominantly white male. When I go to conferences, technical conferences, it's predominantly white male. So, you know, during my matriculation at Michigan, it was sort of a preparation process for the future. There were some cases that I had, or some challenges that I had to overcome that prepared me for the workforce. I remember there was one class, it was an industrial operations laboratory class, where you had to partner up with different pupils within the class to complete laboratory assignments. And since it was me and pretty much all white males, no one wanted to partner up with me for the entire semester. So I predominantly worked by myself. And I worked very hard. I, you know, asked questions, and the professor treated me differently. He answered differently than how he responded to the white male counterparts, I noticed. And it made me feel disparaged. So one day I looked at the grade sheet, which was organized by ID number, not by name. And I noticed that I was the only person in the class that had an A+. So while my colleagues refused to work with me, little did they know that I was the most successful student in the class. And so once they found that out, they did want to work with me. So it kind of ties back to my original discussion of once, you know, you gain the respect of your peers, then you're more welcomed into that community. You know, in the workforce, I always try to stay as professional as possible. I don't want anyone to think because I look young that I'm immature. So I try to talk to people more in a professional manner, but I also try to connect with people on a non-technical manner, right? I want people to invite me out to non-technical discussions, because a lot of times the promotion process is dependent on your relationship outside of the technical field, right? People want to be promote people or work with people that they feel comfortable around. So I spend a lot of time trying to make people feel comfortable. And I wish that sometimes people would do the same thing for me, to welcome me into that environment and make me feel comfortable. But sometimes they just don't know how, because they've never encountered people that look like us. Over.
Thank you. Sadia, do you want to end?
Yeah, I'll end. So I grew up in a very white community. So I was the only black girl in primary school, one of the handful that was in secondary school. So I'm used to being around white people. Same with all my jobs, more or less the only black person. University, the only black person. I think one of the saving graces is that I'm really Scouse, and Scousers are very outspoken anyway. So I think that helps me. I've never felt uncomfortable in any white situations. Like, most of my mates are white. Literally only have like one group of black friends. In the workplace, I feel more than comfortable to say how I feel, say what I want to say. I think everyone around me knows that if I'm quiet, there's an issue, not when I'm loud. So I don't know. I think this question's not for me personally. I feel like I've always felt like myself in any situation with anyone. So yeah, I don't think I answered this question very well, or can help add to anybody's answers.
Thank you. So moving on to the next question. Have any of, and I think you've maybe touched upon this a little bit, some of you already, about, have you ever felt underestimated due to being black, and how you approached it? I know, Clinique, you touched on that just a little bit in your talk. So if you want to expand on it a little bit.
Sure. You know, I do travel a lot to different government installations and different Department of Energy, Department of Defense locations, and have to interact with other research professionals, even travel internationally to different environments. So there was a time where, you know, I just felt like I was being treated differently than my colleagues and sort of disrespected. And one thing that I've learned is, you know, people can say what they want, but you have to remain confident in yourself and know your skills and know your assets. And it's also good to know your weaknesses so you can try to make improvements on that. And I recall at one point a principal investigator gave me a really hard time. I gave a suggestion about how we should proceed with a particular test, and pretty much just ripped me apart, told me I was wrong, I didn't know what I was talking about, and it was just foolish to even ask that type of, or make that sort of request. I was very hurt. So I went back to my hotel, and here I am traveling in the middle of nowhere. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? You can try to tear me down, but it's only me that can allow you to tear me down. Only me that allows me to be upset or to be angry and to respond in a certain manner. So I dusted myself off and I picked myself up and I decided what I was going to say the next day while I was traveling at that particular environment. And they ran up to me and said, you know what, you were absolutely right. We thought about it last night and you had the correct idea, the right mindset. And I said, well, gee whiz, would you have reacted to someone else, in that sort of manner? Or was it just because, you don't respect me just yet? But I felt like, I handled myself. It's very important to handle yourself professionally when you encounter those situations. And, some of you are, still matriculating, you're getting into your first year in your professional capacity. So it's very important to be able to pick your battles and be able to stay strong and make sure that you don't let anyone control your emotions or your feeling, especially in the workplace where, people are going to be constantly judging you. One day you may need a recommendation from that particular person. You might want to be promoted in that particular division. So it's very important to stay strong. So I'm honestly not sure if I answered your question, but hopefully that provided some insight.
Insight. Does anyone want to volunteer to answer this?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so it was, have you ever felt like you've been underestimated due to being Black and how you've approached it?
In like just nuclear or in general?
In the workplace, in studying nuclear, any kind of like that?
No instances, like particular instances come to mind, but the sort of general reaction to whenever I tell someone I'm an engineer or a nuclear engineer is always the same. Like, it's very predictable. It's always like, oh, you kind of thing, every time. And even the people immediately around me, my friends, my boyfriend, everyone expects the exact same reaction because it's every time. And I'm sure it's not me, it's kind of any minority, excuse me, any minority that's in engineering will probably experience the same thing. So that kind of, at first when I first entered uni and I realized that was a thing that was happening, it was discouraging because the way I perceived it felt like it's not a place I belonged, and that's the reason people were so shocked and surprised, that I was an engineer. And eventually I realized it's just because people are not used to seeing engineers that look like me. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and it doesn't necessarily mean they have a bad opinion of me. It kind of speaks to the lack of diversity, I guess, in engineering. That can only be changed with, putting ourselves out there, really.
Thank you. Ray or Sadia, do you have an example?
Yeah. Well, I've heard one that happened to a colleague of mine, and I've heard other people's stories. I think in my own case, when I look back, have I been underestimated? Can't think of any. Actually, when my MBA, for instance, I did an MBA. It was actually part funded by the company that I was working for at the time. And it's just when I see an opportunity, I don't hesitate to ask. I think it was Richard Branson that said that don't hesitate to ask. And the worst they can say is no, but what if they say yes? You will have missed that opportunity. So I think I just go for things, and I told her, well, I've got to do this MBA. Would you guys be able to pay? Talked to my line manager, and did a big presentation of the reason why I want to do it and how that will add value to the organization, and I got part payment for it. Sometime much later in my career, I did a PhD. It was fully funded by the university that I did it with. So there's just lots and lots of opportunities, because maybe it's all also due to the outlook. So I don't expect. I think sometimes when you perceive yourself in a certain way, you tend to project that perception to the way other people deal with you. and I tend to just go for things. The sort of jobs that I applied for when I first came to the UK, if I was born here and bred here, possibly once I've applied for those jobs, I'd be like, nah, they won't be looking for people like me, you know. But I didn't realize it at the time. I just went for it, and I was called for an interview. And next moment, I was in Westminster having meetings with people, you know, having just being in places and meeting people. So so personally, I haven't. I can't recollect, but I know a friend of mine, or a colleague rather, who says anytime she is trying to make a point in her team and in her, you know, department and all that, people don't seem to hear what she's saying, even though she knows what she wants to say. But if a white male repeats the same thing, all of a sudden that gets, oh yeah, that's a great idea, you know, oh yeah, that's a great, and she's thinking, ooh, but that was exactly what I said just now. So there seems to be this invisibility for some reason. People, you know, no matter how great she's doing, and she knows her job, she's doing her job, and people just, as if she was invisible, and then she now seems to be taking that thought and kind of projecting it as well, thinking, well, if I say this, they're not even going to take it. So maybe this, what was the best way to convert that negativity and turn it into sort of positive energy and be more, I don't know, assertive or something? Yeah, but it does happen. But I haven't experienced much of that. Also, sorry, I mentioned earlier that when I walk in town, people ask me, are you a doctor? Because the NHS, they're either Nigerians or something, they're working in the NHS. But then when they see a Black woman, female, they ask you, are you a nurse? You know, because it's just this, you're a female, you must be a nurse, you're a man, you must be a doctor. So this is a little bit off, but anyway, thought I should chip that in.
Yeah, no, important experiences. Sadia, do you want to?
You're getting me excited about moving up to site next year. I can't wait to be seen as a nurse. Can't wait. My dad's dream will come true.
Have you been asked before on the street, like, are you a nurse?
Oh, no. Everyone always thinks I do marketing or something arty. They never ever think engineer. But like, I'm moving up to Whitehaven next year for like my site to comment, so that's going to be definitely. Can't wait to put them in the place.
Let me know.
What was the original question about being underestimated about things?
Yeah, do you feel like you've been underestimated and how you've kind of approached it?
Underestimated is like my, what's it called, my fuel in life. I'm always underestimated. I can't imagine living a life where I'm not underestimated, even by my own family. Like, my dad wanted me to be a nurse, and like my mum thought I'd be like the perfect housewife. What else? In school, my teachers were like, yeah, don't apply for engineering, you won't even get onto the course. And then I get onto the course, and like, yeah, it's just life. I think if you're not underestimated, are you actually doing the right thing? I don't know. I feel like challenge should fuel you as a person. Like, being underestimated should like help you push yourself out there, and like, I don't know, it should make you want to do better than what everyone else thinks and better what you think as a person too. In the workplace, have I been underestimated? I probably have, but like, I'm dead loud, and I'll tell you straight if I'm not being listened to. Like, I remember in uni one time, we were talking about doing like engineering skills, and like, it was like group discussion, and some lad who was like our representative, I think he gave himself that title, like, he's so like deluded, but anyway, he like got up and was like, I've done this engineering skills before, like, I know how to weld, I know how to like do all that jazz, like all hands-on stuff. And I was like, well, I've never had that experience, so for you to like just base that off yourself and like decide for the whole entire people as the rep ain't going forward. And he like sort of like shot me down, and then I just stood up and said it again, and then he was like, you're getting a bit aggressive. And I'm like, so like, you never listened to me the first time, let me get aggressive so you listen to me now. And then the lecturer was on my side, and like, yeah, he made sure engineering skills still happened in uni. But yeah, I think if you believe in something and you think you can do something, just go for it. Like, what's underestimation for yourself? Do you know what I mean? I can't even say the words, but yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you. So kind of leading on from this, question we've had is, do you have any advice for individuals whose confidence has kind of been affected by these negative experiences? Like, what would you tell them? You want to take this first? Give you a moment to think. Yes, Sunchi, if you want to. Okay.
I would say similar to what Dr. Clinique was saying, is to not, well, similar to what everyone was saying really, is to not be afraid to be the first, and so like someone has to do it, and even though you might not see the effects of your work immediately, someone else will, and that makes the value of your work, you know, so much more. Is benefiting more than you, even if someone else doesn't see that. Like I completely understand, like even for me myself, my confidence takes a really big hit sometimes if I don't feel represented or if I feel lonely. That happens, but then what gets me through it is remembering that I'm one of the first. I'm the first in my family to do this. I'm the first person that I know personally, you know, from everyone that I grew up with back home to do anything like this. And what gets me through it is realizing that someone's going to see me one day and is going to encourage them to do it. So that's what gets me through those periods.
Brilliant, thank you. Does anyone else want to go next?
Yes, I'll say maybe consistency. So don't, because someone underestimates you and because of that you don't put yourself forward again next time, or you don't want to be. So I think just to keep at it, and also continue to have a sort of log of where you've been underestimated and how you surmounted it. And I think, yeah, just consistency. And that actually makes a good story at the end of the day. When you finally succeed and you get to where you want to get to, you can use that as a sort of motivation for other people. I see a lot of motivational speakers these days who've never done anything in life. They just, you can do it. You can, all these YouTube videos. And I'm like, dude, what exactly have you run a business? Have you ever done anything? No. You can do, and then they're making lots of money on YouTube. So, but this will be authentic. You can actually tell people, inspire people that, yeah, I did have this underestimation and obstacles, but hey, consistency, keep at it. And when you need to report it. Lots of organizations have EDIs now, equality, diversity, and inclusion department, or the HR or something. If things need to be reported, report it. If things need to be brought out to the open, yeah, do that. You might just get support. If line managers need to be changed or something, yeah, get it happen, because some people can't just sit on your career and you're going to be there for 5-10 years not getting anywhere because someone is underestimating you, sapping your confidence. And I know some parents do that to their kids, some, you know, in the workplace as well. So one just has to find a way of escaping that, or yeah, making sure that nobody keeps you down. So yeah, hope that helps.
Thank you.
What was the question again? Sorry.
It was, do you have any advice for people who are affected by negative experiences?
I think you need to get like a strong mindset as well. Like, make sure in yourself that you know what you're doing is right, if that makes sense. Like, I think that could be an answer to the question. If you believe it in yourself, it'll always come out the right way. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I talked a lot about it, confidence earlier, and you guys all hit very important points about it as well. I would also recommend that if someone has a confidence issue, to look into the imposter syndrome. A lot of us have the imposter syndrome, which is a psychological pattern, which is within an individual, where you doubt your skills, your talents, or accomplishments, and you have this persistent internalized fear of being exposed as a fraud. For example, you may get a PhD or be in a PhD program, but you fear that, well, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. Maybe I'm not smart enough. Maybe I somehow just skated my way through and people kept passing me and they didn't notice that I'm not comparable to my colleagues. But that's just a syndrome that a lot of people get affected by and internalize. So like everyone mentioned, make sure your confidence is high, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. And once you realize that you have the imposter syndrome, I didn't get over it until I got my first job. So it's common, but it's up to you to control how you respond to it and how you respond to your colleagues. Over.
Brilliant, thank you for that. That's some great advice. So next I'm going to ask, what can people be to be a good ally to the Black community? I realize that it's always on the minority to kind of educate how to best support people, which it shouldn't always be, but I feel it might be good just if you have any ideas about how people such as myself can support people best.
I'll just say, if I may start, I think it's more about people just need to be more educate themselves, basically. I think the more, before I came to the UK, if the more you travel and the more you get exposed to different cultures and different races and people, the more comfortable you're likely to be around them. And it's not just, and someone mentioned earlier as well, I mean, if a white person goes to work in China, for instance, you will be a minority there. People will stare at you. People will want to touch your hair. People will want to, you'll feel out of place. So the same way, just think about that as well and see what you can do. I would rather deal with those that are open-minded and they want to know and they're asking questions and whatever, than those who want to pretend that they know and they begin to sound patronizing and begin to, like, hey dude, or trying to give me some sort of black handshake or hey my G. No, please. I think being more and more exposed might just help, and be open, be sincere, be honest. Just say what you want to say, ask what you want to ask. Don't try to be a wannabe. Just be. And I'm very open-minded as well. Sometimes I take things. I don't take things in an offensive way every time. Like immediately you get defensive and you try to no. I listen. I take people's points of views, and so I tend to thrive a lot with those that are very open-minded and have really intelligible sort of conversations, so some of the people that I work with in Sellafield now, they see me as their friend now. They've added me on Facebook, even though I've just left Facebook. They invite me to, some of them, even their spouses, they've heard about me. They're like, oh Ray, you need to come to our place one of these days. Oh, you've got to come, because they want to know more. They want to, so just be open. If that's the summary of that, be open-minded and accommodate, be yourself, but don't try too hard. So
Thank you.
Yeah, those are excellent points, Raymond. I concur with them. I would even expand on that to say that it's up to the people on the outside or the people on the inside, the majority population, to learn about the minority population, like you were saying, and attend events like these, participate in cultural activities and learn about different cultures, reach out to people that are not in your social circles, that don't look like you. Make people feel welcome, learn about them. You might find that you have more things in common than you think. Over.
And also look for similarities, not differences. A lot of times, the first thing we look out for is the differences. Oh, where are you from? Oh, why do you sound like that? Or how did it, actually, what about the things that connect both together? So look for instant connection in similarities and patterns, and maybe it's football, maybe it's whatever, whatever it is that starts the conversation. That can also help. Yeah, but you're right, absolutely right.
Great, thank you.
I think something I would add is to be aware of maybe talking over Black voices. Make sure that you're actively listening, not just listening to relay something to someone else. That's something that I guess maybe I've just recently noticed is a thing, is that I've noticed if in I guess places like protests, like the recent Black Lives Matter protest, whilst the vast majority of white and non-Black people there were well-wishers, a lot of them were there just to talk over people's experiences, to be able to, relay this back to their friends and things like that, and not actively listening. So I think that's something that has to be constantly on your mind. Just, remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So make sure that you're actively listening to our experiences and to our voices, and to reach beyond your own comfort zone.
I would also like to add making sure that there's a person of colour present when decisions are getting made as well. I think that's one thing people tend to struggle with without realising. It's like you can't make rules and decisions for everyone while not making sure that a representative from every single community is there to make sure that their people are looked after too. I think that's a good way to be an ally.
Thank you for all that. Very informative, and I hope people watching will definitely take this on board. So the next thing is, how do you balance self-care with your work, and if you also do advocacy work? So how do you recommend taking time for yourself?
Absolutely. Is this about self-care?
Yes.
Oh, I could write a Bible about this. I'm a big believer in, if you don't work, you don't work. The second you clock out, you're clocked out. Like, don't answer to any WhatsApps, messages, emails, no. Lock your work phone away. Big believer in doing half an hour worth of exercise every day. Have a glass of wine every day. Don't count your calories and just be happy. I'm a bit of a hippie, so yeah. But yeah, I like balance in life.
Good, thank you. Does anyone want to go next?
Self-help.
Yeah, so I was actually going to say that as well, is to recognize when you need to help yourself. So like things like Clinique was saying with imposter syndrome, that's a really important thing to recognize and to address, because that can not just take a toll on your work and your physical, it can really take a toll on your mental health. And you should also be aware of what help is available to you. A lot of companies have things like mental health first aiders now, and a lot of different resources that you can try to help yourself before you need to seek any kind of professional help.
And is this about self-help or what we do outside work? Or?
Yeah, so self-care, helping what you do to help your hair.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it's I haven't got a television deliberately. I keep away completely. Number one, I hate advertisements. Don't like to use the word hate, but I don't like advertisements at all. It's too much right now. Every 5 minutes thing you're watching, they must show you 10 advertisements. That's not me. If it's not advertisement, it's about news, and 90% of news is negative. And it's not just negativity, it's the repetitiveness of the news every second, over and over and over and over. So done with television, straight on. Social media as well is getting really, really bad now these days. I mean, it was fantastic when it came out, like Facebook in the early days of Facebook. It was the best thing ever. It's all lost that So for the sake of being sane, especially in COVID times when we don't have the opportunity to be out there meeting people and partying and all that, you're there by yourself a lot of times. We work. I sit here every single day working. So the last thing I want is something to keep my mind wind up and there's no one I can immediately begin to spill all these things to. Yeah, it's really bad. So I keep away. Yeah, and I tried to, shut down. I realized that we've been working longer hours. Even when COVID started, we realized that every little, back in the day, you met people in the kitchen, in the offices and corridors, and you had quick catch-ups with people. Right now, everything is done online, so it just takes so much time. By the time I'm having desk time, it's already 5 o'clock. So now I've learned to just shut down and do other things. So I relax. I like to watch documentaries, really, really well-researched documentaries. I play the piano. I got my keyboard just next to me. I cook up music. I produce music. I do all sorts of non-work related things that contributes to my future life's work. I think we a lot of times we talk about our careers, but actually we should think about why we are actually here. That's one thing that we've brought into this world that makes a difference, makes us unique. That's life's work. That's what we will look back to when we are 80 and 90, and we're looking back. Yeah, I was glad I did that. So yeah, I've got a lot of things going on in the background. So yeah, good question.
Yeah, I think there are many very interesting points, good points that you all mentioned. And the only other point that I'd like to add is just make sure that you're taking the time to celebrate small victories or milestones within your career, right? So we just ended our fiscal year in the US, and it was very tough. I had a lot of deliverables that I had to meet by 30 September. And I stayed up late nights. I had to have many conversations with my colleagues to get them accomplished. And 1 October, I definitely celebrated. I went to the beach by myself and made sure that I got out and enjoyed the sunshine, the scenery. And so I just remember, even if you have a calendar-based year budget around the Christmas time, you take your vacations, you plan a vacation, you make sure that you get away from the office, get away from it all. Like Sadia said, make sure you don't answer your emails and phone calls, outside of those working hours while you're on vacation. And definitely, celebrate the little things, whether you got a report in on time and it was recognized, and big things such as a promotion, so that it breaks up the monotony, especially during these COVID times. Over.
Good, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important, especially in these times, as you just said, with COVID times, that we all take a moment to do some self-care. So we've got a few ones aimed towards specific people, because they might have not had a chance to ask them earlier. So I'll go for them now. So for Ray, do you have any examples of the varying challenges faced by different organizations that make up the NDA estate with respect to knowledge management, or other problems consistent?
Yeah, they're consistent actually across the NDA. So it doesn't matter if it's LLWR, where they are thinking about, waste management and radioactive waste, and or RWM, which they will be the biggest in future when Sellafield winds down and all that. But the common pattern is about the knowledge risks of not having the expertise and capability to deliver nuclear. Would we still be able to deliver nuclear in the next 10 years and the next 15 years? So it's about the knowledge. Those that are retiring, lots and lots of people now retiring in their 60s, and they have all this 30, 40-year experience, and they're going out of the door, and we are not doing the best we can to connect, to capture that knowledge and transfer it to the upcoming generation. I understand there's a U-shaped demography when it comes to expertise. So there's a lot of people getting out of the door. There are a lot of new graduates in. There's this middle bit where we need to really, really connect. So how do we deploy tools and techniques to make that happen? So I see that across the NDA. And how do I know this? I'm part of the Knowledge Management Leadership Forum of the NDA that has all the KM leads from this other entities, companies. We meet once a month to talk about knowledge management. So there's also the knowledge of collective knowledge of teams and capabilities and specialisms and knowledge domains and all of that. Yeah, there's all sorts. Yeah, so the question is, yes, it cuts across. It might be in different degrees of complexity, right? But yeah, it's happening. But we're doing the best we can to mitigate the risks.
Thank you. So this one for Sadia. Will the race charter you're working on cover the whole of the NDA companies, or is it Sellafield specific?
So the one that we're working on is Sellafield specific, but we're also working with the NDA with their BAME network, and hopefully it will roll out to them. I know other companies like Jacob and some in the public sector have got their like race charter and they are using it actively. So I think it will be everywhere, but it's just a matter of time of getting it all sorted for what that company thinks is right for them. But yeah, I think it will happen soon. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. And this one for Clinique. If you hadn't been the trailblazer and instead had someone from the previous generation to follow, do you think your career would have been very different in focus or direction?
That's an excellent question. I don't think my career would have changed drastically, but I've always, well, maybe not always, but more recently have found that mentors are very important. They're important to guide you and to give you the right unbiased direction and to give you honest feedback to help you matriculate through your career. I didn't really get a mentor until my final year at the Naval Nuclear Laboratory, which was last year. And I felt as though if I would have had his help a long time ago, I would have been way more successful in my career. So now I make it a point to always get a mentor. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone in my field. It could be a professional mentor. It could be someone I met at a conference. But I think with the mentor support and guidance, it'll really help you springboard even further. So to answer your question, had I had a mentor, I think I would have been a lot more successful than I am now, because I was doing a lot of things on my own and gathering knowledge on my own. So I implore everybody to get at least one mentor. I even convinced my brother, he's in the healthcare industry, to get a mentor, and he has just been flourishing ever since. So I think that's really important. Over.
Brilliant. Thank you. We'll go back to a few more general ones just for the last few questions. So the next one is, what is the favorite thing about your current job? And this can be anything that you really enjoy about your current workplace.
My favorite thing about my job is always learning something new. Like, I'm such a nerd at heart, so like when I get to learn something new, I'm like, oh my god, this is so exciting. I have that little like, you know, my brain is actually working, something's moving up there. Yeah, that's my favorite thing about my job, always learning something new every day.
I've only been in my job for 4 weeks, but the thing I enjoy about it the most is the responsibility I have now. Moving from uni, where everything's kind of structured for you, and is needed to, so that you can learn, you know. But yeah, suddenly having all this responsibility and having and knowing that everything I learned over my 4 years of uni is now counting towards something real, something tangible. That's something I really enjoy, even though I've only been in my job for a short time. It's something that I'm already been given.
Excellent.
Nick?
Yeah, I can go next. I'll talk about just my experience at the Naval Nuclear Laboratory. I enjoyed being able to develop superior technologies for my country. You know, knowing that the technologies that I was developing as a civilian was helping to keep our sailors safe and helping to keep our country safe. And so that was very meaningful to me. And that's one of the things that attracted me to that particular company.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, it's it's just a bit working in the public sector, because I've done consulting for lots of organizations, and so when I came to Sellafield, it was a different organization. It was almost an impossible organization, and I almost left 2 years ago. I was like, nah, can't do this. Let's go. But actually, looking back now, I was like, yeah, it was a good thing. So I learned to persevere. I've learned to being able to, things might be moving very, very slowly, but at least it's heading in the right direction. And they always say, well, I always say, if you're speeding in the wrong direction, it doesn't take you to a destination, okay? But if you recalibrate things and you reroute your journey, even if you are crawling, as long as you're heading in the right direction, you will get there eventually. So it's taking that amount of time, but I like the learning process. So even though I see myself as an expert and a consultant, I've also learned a lot from working with the people there. And they also say the best way to learn is to teach. So sometimes when you're taking people through stuff, you also gain new insights, to create new knowledge by that sort of relationship with people. So yeah, so I think so that's been interesting. It's just that journey, and wherever I find myself in the near future, I will always remember having worked with people in Sellafield and making a difference in their world.
Brilliant. Thank you. So just to end, this one was kind of geared towards Clinique, but it can be open to all of you. We've been asked for what is your favorite high temperature nuclear material and why. So if anyone has any opinions on that. They wanted to know Clinique specifically, but said it.
Oh, okay.
For everyone.
I don't know if I have a favorite one, but I primarily worked with zirconium, which I thought was very, very cool. Has a lot of great high temperature structural properties. You have cubic zirconium. So, there are a lot of things that you can use with zirconium inside and outside of the nuclear industry that are very unique. And, there's a lot of materials development that's still, still there that, we worked on and probably will be worked on the next 50 or so years. So that's my favorite material.
Well, I haven't handled any material other than that I've done knowledge management work within Alpha Resilience and Capabilities program, and those looking after the 40% or so stockpile of uranium and plutonium. So I hear of these things every time, and sometimes I go on YouTube to see what it looks like, what it feels like. I'm like, okay, so that's my closest relationship with materials. But someone, talking about UK AEA and fission, that will be really, really fantastic to behold whenever it's ready in the future. So looking forward to that.
Okay, I guess coming on from that, I mean, I haven't really ventured into nuclear materials outside of steel. A lot of my undergraduate degree was on the material side of things, at least, was based on steel. And my project right now is based on steel. And I'm actually dealing with two types of steel. One is called 316LN steel. And out of two that I'm using, that's the only one that's behaving. So that's my favorite right now.
Oh, guys, I'm a mechanical engineer. What do I know about materials? I've not touched materials since like second year of uni, and the second I could drop the module, I was not touching it. I think as a nuclear professional, my favourite material is concrete, because you can just pour that everywhere and it's solved all your problems. I don't know what to say.
I think concrete's a valid material answer. Yeah, so thank you so much for answering all these questions. Sorry we couldn't get around to everyone. There was some great stuff. We've also had lots of thank yous in the chat. We've had quite a few mentions of your Jamaican flag, Sunchi. A couple of shout outs for that. And specific speakers as well. Sadia, Emily's shouted out to hearing a fellow Scouse was very nice.
Scouts unite! Woo!
So yeah, a big thank you from myself to everyone attending and our speakers. I think a big thank you from everyone attending to our speakers too. It's been really great to hear about your experiences. we do have a feedback form that we've been dropping that we'd kind of really appreciate to fill out. I say this is the first time that NucSoc has kind of ran like any kind of EDI event, let alone for Black History Month. So I hope you've kind of really enjoyed it and have learned a lot. And we hope to do these kind of things in the future. So yeah.
It's been really great.
Thanks a lot for that, and shout out to Alex Dixon Lomas for connecting me to this. And yeah, so it's a great session. And thanks a lot to everyone who organized, Avery and Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Avery. Thank you for inviting me as well. It was really, really thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Okay.
Oh yeah, this has been fab. Thanks for all the students for attending and listening as
Yeah.
well. Like,
Thanks for listening to us.
Yeah, the questions are very interesting. Well done to you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. All right, I'll let you all go off to enjoy your Wednesday evenings or mornings if you're over in America.
Yeah. So yeah. Bye.